honest, I've had a really fun career and I've had lots of things that were really exciting to do, or achievements that I'm really proud of, but my friends are just like, oh my gosh, why is she talking about paint again? Hi, my name is Danusia Wypych and I'm the CEO of Chargenet, which is New Zealand's leading EV charging company. So I'm like a lot of Kiwi kids in that I had the paper run that I shared with my brothers, and then we fought about who would do the paper run. But probably my first job that kind of led into my career was working for a small company in the 1990s called New Zealand Education International, and I joined on a 3-week contract as a student and I stayed for 9 years, and we were promoting New Zealand as an education destination, and that industry grew from being a few hundred students in the country to one of New Zealand's largest export earners. I learned a lot of things on that journey. I learned that you can get a job if you go into the interview and you're honest. So when I was a student and I had worked in a department store and things like that, during the interview process they actually asked me, so you'll have to use a fax machine, do you know what it looks like? And I'm like, well, I imagine it looks like a photocopier, but smaller. But no, I've never used a fax machine, but I'm sure you can teach me. So I think one of the things, particularly when you're beginning in your career, is identifying things you don't know and offering someone to teach you that thing, like particularly people who are top of field or good at their game. If you are genuine with someone and say, this is what I do know and what I don't know, you'll always find someone who's prepared to help you fill in the gap. So since then, it's been quite the journey. I like to describe my career that you kind of stand in the mist but look back on rainbows. So I spent my time in a booming export and rising sunrise industry. And then I returned to my sort of science and STEM roots and became involved in a research institute. So Industrial Research Limited, which was one of the government research institutes in New Zealand. And then I got to move into being the technical manager at Resine Paints, and I worked with production teams, the research teams, quality teams, producing a leading brand of paint in New Zealand. When I'd finished that journey and met what I could there, I moved on to Z Energy, and that's where my love with deep infrastructure began. So I started as a sustainability manager and then moved into core supply chain. And I was at that company for about 8 years. If I think about my early career, there's probably 2 types of challenges. One's where I was getting in my own way, things that I could do better to communicate my ideas or bring people on a journey with me, and then ones that were external to me. So being a young woman in highly technical fields, it was important to establish on what basis could my voice be heard, and I didn't feel like everybody had to do that in the room, but that was something I became more adept with over time, and there was a great way to create rapport with people no matter what our backgrounds were. So one of the moments that I still look back on with tremendous pride is a team I worked with, and we were working on a large transformation project that had a huge health and safety component to it. We were working with teams and we had to change their lives. We were working with critical infrastructure and assets, and we had a limited amount of time to complete this project. I started with a bunch of team members who knew nothing about my part of the business, but everything about what they did well. And I remember the first day, they're like, why are we here? How are we going to do this? And I actually left the project 9 months later while it was still in full flight and returned for the victory party at the end when they'd completed the transformation. And I looked around the room at what all of these people had achieved and what an amazing job they'd done, because in the first 9 months, they got to the point where they didn't need me anymore. They had everything they needed from me, and now they could continue to operate as a team and execute on an amazing project. So that is still a standout career highlight. Yeah, so we were bringing back the operations that had been outsourced to another company for over 20 years. And we had a team existing inside the business who had joined our business sort of a couple of years earlier. So we had to go through a really complex project of disengaging from that external company, bringing teams in, establishing new teams in cities around New Zealand to operate the assets. It involved everything from IT through to the physical fencing, through to people. It was just a massive piece of work to bring all the systems into line. And at the heart of it, we needed these sites to continue to operate. They were supplying fuel to all the regions of New Zealand, and we needed to ensure that that fuel supply continued. So you had, challenges from when can we do the IT cutover that won't interrupt fuel being taken from ship to shore? What are all the safety procedures that we have within these teams? Do they align? How will people feel if we're asking them to change employer and join teams that they might have left, or join teams that they thought they would never work for? How will we manage our way through this with our external stakeholders and our partners who have been in this business with us for 20 years? So it had so many dimensions to the project. And like I said, it was really working with the specialty teams and the leads in each of the work streams that still stands out for me. But I think the really key thing was, and I think this is something that I still reflect on, so the CEO of the company that we left from the joint venture is still a referee for me if I go for jobs. So maintaining those professional relationships and being able to work with people in their field and their expertise was a real highlight. Yeah, so I've had a range of mentors over time, and they can be peer-to-peer relationships that I've got, get together and kind of thrash out the issues with a colleague, but also having a mentor, someone who has either got a broader range of experiences than me across different industries, so might bring different insights, is at a different career stage than me, so might be early career stage or later career stage, and learning from them. I'm usually catching up with a mentor about once a month, and we're kind of working on what's my short-term objectives, what are the things still getting in my own way, and what are my longer-term objectives, and am I putting the time and energy into achieving those longer-term objectives while I go about my day-to-day. I think one of the exciting things about EVs is the role that they positively play in the electricity environment. So we're really used to like a one-way flow of electricity. It comes from where it's generated down through the wires and substations and then gets to our houses. And what EVs really offer us is the opportunity to have a battery parked outside our house or in our garage, and that can participate in the electricity system. So I think for me, it's not even about new technology, it's about making sure the technologies that we've already got coming into New Zealand can be well integrated. And I think there are some real challenges in that. Some of the eyeball drying work that we do behind the scenes is around talking with regulators and looking at how can we get consistent access to networks in New Zealand, but then also we're really interested in how can EVs participate financially as well as structurally in the electricity that we access in our homes. So there's a whole lot of stuff that's happening in that space, and it's not new to the world. Like the art is practiced in small pockets and places around the world. It's about integrating it into our ways of working in New Zealand. So for me, I kind of see myself more on the infrastructure end of things, and what I love about it is you get to build and create things that endure for decades, and they can really shape the way people live. So if I think about healthy homes or engaging workplaces or great electricity networks that make sure the lights are always on, or EV infrastructure and transport, they're the kind of subtle shape to our lives, and the better you make them, the easier life is, the more health and joy you can bring into people's way of being. And if you're really, really good at it, people don't even notice. So I think the thing that I would like to see more of is that long-term and intergenerational view. So I think about our electricity system at the moment, as much as it struggles, people made investments in a lot of that infrastructure 50 or 60 years ago, and we got to live through the back of that investment in that time frame. And when you're sitting down, there are many projects that you can be involved in, and that our leading companies and organisations in New Zealand need to be involved in, where the return time frame is in that 20 to 30 year time frame. So how do you create options for our future selves? How will someone 15 years from now sit down and thank you for making that investment or keeping an option open or creating resilience? So that's something that I would like to see more of. I think it's something that we need to find a framework and a language for, so we can start bringing it to the sort of centre and heart of more of our decisions. If you're looking at what opens up the broadest career options, I think one of the things that was a huge advantage for me during my career was having a technical component to my background. So I studied a science at university, and it's not that I have always operated in the field of that science. I did basically inorganic chemistry. It's that I am able to hold a conversation with somebody who has deep technical knowledge and draw from them what I need to understand to get a business outcome. So training your brain to do that some way, whether it's how you study or the interests that you take, I think is really useful. So that would be a key thing. And if you're transitioning from another industry, I'd look at, well, what are the transferable skills? So where you've had deep knowledge before, what was it about that enabled you? And back to the comments earlier, whether you work with a mentor or someone who's helping you shape your career, kind of really distilling what are the things that you're good at, even if you take the content out, like the subject matter from your career.